Hey, welcome to the third episode of Raised by Superman. I'm your host, Jason, and I know it's been a long time since episode 2 came out. I recorded a third episode and then ran into life and didn't get another one out, and I know you're not supposed to apologize and just get to it, so let's just get to it. Episode 3, let's talk about some of the other things that I've picked up in the subsequent viewings of the 2025 James Gunn Superman movie. Because since the last time I recorded, the movie has come out on digital video, and I've gone from seeing it 3 times in the theaters to 4 more times here at home, and watching some of the bonus content, and I think I'll cover that separately at some point, because they haven't even added all the bonus content that they're going to, but there's some absolute gold in and among all of that stuff. But let's talk some more about some of the things that I've heard in other podcasts and other places online, social media, things that people have been talking about with regard to some of the things they liked or didn't like or wanted more of in the Superman movie. Let's start with the Kents. For some people, the Kents have been a little bit of a hang-up. Let's just call it that. They were a hang-up for some people. Some people thought they were making fun of people that live in rural areas. Some people thought they were too much of a caricature. Some people just didn't like how country bumpkin-y they were. As someone who used to live in Kansas at 2 different points in my life, and most recently as 4 years ago, spent 5 years living in Kansas and working for the agricultural college at Kansas State University. So I ran across a lot of people that knew a lot about farming, way more than I ever will or could, because I was on the communication side, but dealt with tons and tons of people connected to agriculture in Kansas. Clark Kent, the son of a farmer in Kansas. Guess what? That was a very, very, very accurate portrayal of someone who's just as down to earth as you could possibly be. My own immediate family, after we came out of that movie, we were like, we know somebody in our extended family who is almost exactly like Pruitt Taylor Vince portrayed Pa Kent, with his mannerisms and even the way he looked. He was dead on as a farmer. Soft-spoken, not going to say a lot, but when he does, it means a ton. And yes, they can be very emotional, just like every other human being on the earth. And even down to the little bit of small talk that he starts with Clark out in front of the Kent farm, which is also accurate as a farm because it's not some elaborate, multi-million-dollar, amazing, gleaming bit of rural Americana the way that, say, the Smallville farm looked, and how they managed to always make it look the same even after it got destroyed and rebuilt. I think at least twice. And they rebuilt it exactly the way it was, really quickly. No problems with insurance or anything in that. That's when you know that this is a fictional world. But back to this Kent farm, and even down to Clark going out and eating his cereal barefoot in front of the house, just taking in the landscape. Very, very much like someone living on a farm would, because they appreciate living out in the big open vastness where you just see land and sky uninterrupted except for a line where they meet across the horizon. And that's what farmers appreciate. They love living out in the openness. Many of them don't want to even go into town, and most certainly don't want to go into big metropolitan areas. They like the solitude. They appreciate the beauty of nature. And Clark's out there just taking it in. Sure, he's probably charging up too, but he's out there barefoot eating his cereal like a kid, like he's back at home. My younger daughter remarked not too long ago that she and her friends who just recently graduated from college, they all had the same observation that when they go home back to their parents' house, it's like they revert back to their high school selves. And you can see that with Clark in that moment. But he's also dealing with all the weight of the world on his shoulders as well. But there's just a little bit of that, like, nope, I feel at home here. I can run out of the house in my pajamas and robe and bare feet and just hang out outside because nobody's going to see me out here. I'm just going to enjoy it. I'm going to take it in, the peace and quiet, so I can think. And then Pa Kent comes over and just kind of waves his hand like, hey, scoot over. Like, this is something they've done multiple times in the past. Scoot over, I'll have a seat. First, I'm going to break the ice by talking about the burritos that we got down at that restaurant down there by the interstate. Yes, that's small talk. The way a rural farmer would engage in small talk. Nailed it. And then Ma Kent. Yes, she's got a pretty thick Southern accent, but guess what? Down in southeast Kansas, down close to Oklahoma and Arkansas, there's pockets down there where people do have that kind of an accent. And my guess is that Ma Kent at some point in her life ventured a little bit farther west in Kansas, didn't go too far, but went a little bit farther west and met the man who would become Pa Kent. It's interesting, too, they didn't even give them names in the credits. It's just Ma Kent and Pa Kent. We don't even know if her name is Martha. Why did you say that name? Could be Sarah and Eben, like back in the old days. But as an older person dealing with technology and things like that, who hasn't seen a parent or grandparent kind of struggle with how to use an iPhone or how to use FaceTime and yell into it as if they're far, far away and they have to be heard? That's totally realistic. So there's nothing unrealistic or un-Kansas about Ma and Pa Kent, not in any way, shape, or form. I think they absolutely nailed the characterization and the casting, and especially the script writing for Ma and Pa Kent. So good. Then let's turn to another piece that's has caused some controversy, and that's with the L's, Clark's birth parents, and the message that they sent, and the part that got scrambled and then translated, and it revealed that they wanted him to come to Earth and take over because, of course, he's going to be so much stronger than everybody. Why wouldn't he take over and repopulate and help Krypton live on? I mean, if you're thinking about your own population, wouldn't you kind of want in some way for your society to carry on if you think that this is the only living person from your planet? Yeah, you would entertain those thoughts. That doesn't necessarily make them bad, but maybe they are bad. And that's also not unprecedented. We've had multiple times where there's been ulterior motives. I wouldn't say outright bad, I guess, because we don't even know that these versions of Clark's birth parents from Krypton are absolutely evil or bad. It's just they have a different point of view, and they figure he's going to be stronger and that he can help in some way make Krypton live again. I think that's their biggest hope. But for there to be some kind of message along those lines is not unprecedented. Jor-El in the Smallville TV show, when Christopher Reeve was on the show as Dr. Virgil Swan, helping to explain to Clark where he came from and giving him that message from Jor-El. It said, "Rule them well, my son." And then Clark had, especially right away, but throughout the rest of the series, Clark dealt with worrying about the idea that I was sent here to conquer. And he struggled with that. He, of course, did not want to do that because of how he ended up being raised by the Kents in their magical house that always gets rebuilt. But that's not unprecedented for the Kryptonian parents to have some kind of a somewhat sinister seeming message for Clark. And even in the comics, fairly recently, we had a situation where Jor-El was still alive and met Clark and his son Jonathan and took John on a year-long trip through multiple galaxies. But he was also kind of a hard-edged dude in a lot of different ways and had a different moral compass than what Superman was raised with. So this is not unprecedented, and I think it's just the beginning of a story to be told. And I think you're going to see some more of that in the Supergirl movie next year. Because also, guess what? Kara, or if they pronounce it Kara, whichever way, Supergirl seems pretty hard-edged herself. The only person that's really the loving embodiment of heroism, nobilism, and being a true and proper role model among any of these metahumans in this DC universe so far is Superman. Everybody else is pretty flawed and pretty loaded down with baggage of all kinds. See the Peacemaker series. And yeah, I'm going to bring some of that in because at the time of this recording, the first episode of Peacemaker has hit HBO Max, and it picks up on a lot of stuff from the Superman movie and takes it forward and takes some of those characters forward. We see Green Lantern and Hawkgirl and Maxwell Lord. We hear a lot about imps, dimensional imps, and how much of a pain in the butt those are. They mention the incident in Metropolis. And I kind of wonder if maybe the part of what they're talking about as far as an incident might have been the imp more than the Lex Luthor thing. Maybe not, but, you know, we had a lot that was tied in. And we got to see even in greater detail how just a couple of jerks. Guy Gardner is, and Hawkgirl. She's not a noble hero person. She's doing what she can, and we don't really know a lot about her motivation. I mean, she's had so many different iterations in the comics and cartoons and all over the place. We don't exactly know which version of Hawkgirl this is, but we know a lot about Guy Gardner, and he's always a D-bag no matter where he is and what's going on. So we're seeing some more of that. We saw a little bit of a retcon from the end of Peacemaker Season 1, where they had the Justice League kind of in silhouette, except for they had a short little cameo with Aquaman and Flash interacting. And that was completely replaced with a previously in the DCU. So you know this is a different universe, and a lot of things happened the same, but some things didn't, including who showed up when Peacemaker helped lead the 11th Street kids to stop the invasion of the butterflies. And this time it was the Justice Gang, plus Superman and Supergirl. Whether or not they're part of the Justice Gang, I don't exactly know. But you had Mr. Terrific, Guy Gardner, and Hawkgirl, plus Superman and Supergirl standing there, kind of mostly in silhouette, instead of the members of the Justice League, the way they did it at the end of Peacemaker Season 1 3 years ago. A lot's changed since then. So we're going to get a lot more out of them. And that leads into another common thread I've heard a lot of people talking about, is that there was so much packed into this movie that it didn't give us enough with the side characters. And a lot of people seem to think that the Justice Gang kind of detracted and stole time away that we could have gotten and should have gotten with the Daily Planet crew. Valid. Both sets of comments valid. However, this is the first movie in this new DC universe. We're going to get a lot more content out of all of these. We may even get a Jimmy Olsen spin-off TV series from what we're hearing. And I like the fact that this was sort of a teaser, a little taste of what you're going to get. Because if we walked away completely satisfied with this movie being 100% self-contained and had multiple great scenes with all the members of the Daily Planet, what would you do to go forward? James Gunn had to make a movie that also launched this universe and made you want to go see some more of these movies and TV shows and even animated series. So what he did was smart. He just peppered all these little things in here that can all be little threads that can be pulled later on, which is what he had to do, not as a director, but as the co-leader of the studio, and turn all of this stuff into teasers that says, hey, we're going to do some more here. This is a much bigger, broader world, and we're just giving you a little taste. Please come back. We'll give you more. And I think we're going to get a lot more with the Daily Planet, and we've already started to get more with the Justice Gang. And yes, hopefully we get them renamed at some point when they get to a point. Now, remember, way back when, James Gunn said one of the bits of inspiring source material for him as he went into this, along with All-Star Superman and a little bit with Superman for All Seasons, another bit was Kingdom Come. And what happens in Kingdom Come? We've got a lot of heroes, quote-unquote heroes, who don't do anything that's much different and more heroic than what the villains are doing. You got heroes that are very self-centered, and they're killing bad guys all over the place and not caring about collateral damage and all that kind of stuff. And I think that's sort of what we're setting up here. And what's really going to be interesting, here's one little prediction with me not knowing anything more about the Peacemaker series. I feel like we're going to get a lot more movement with Christopher Smith, Peacemaker, toward becoming a true hero. That he's going to eventually get to the point he doesn't want to kill people. He's already kind of said that at the end of Peacemaker Season 1. And you can see even when he was trying to audition for the Justice Gang again, that he didn't feel like he fit in with them because they're too much of a bunch of jerks compared to the way he wants to be. Like, he's starting to get an idea of what's noble. Now, I know he did have the little cameo in Superman where he was basically holding himself up as the paragon, and you can't trust Superman even. Plus, they're jealous of me because I'm more jacked than they are. He hasn't fully made that journey. He's still in the middle of that journey, especially if you think about the one scene in there in episode 1 of season 2 that very much reminds you that this is not the movie for kids that Superman was. But yeah, I think James Gunn has a streak of idealism in him where he wants to tell these stories about redemption for some of these characters and found family and things like that. And he's going to move Christopher Smith into the Superman column. And I don't know what's going to happen with Hawkgirl and Guy Gardner. Mr. Terrific seems like he's relatively a decent dude, other than wanting to just automatically poke out the eyes of the kaiju and then sending bombs inside it to kill it. But I think that goes more to him being kind of this tech wizard that just is like, let's take the most efficient way forward and get that done. But I also think he's got more of a good heart. I mean, obviously, he was the one that wanted to jump forward and help Lois go find and save Superman. So he's got a good heart to him. And you can tell, I mean, he's the one that Superman can talk to in the middle of the kaiju fight, and even in the little button at the very, very end of the movie after the credits. They're buds, because Superman feels like he can trust that guy. And I think over the course of this long-term DCU, we're going to have a spectrum of teams and things like that. And at one end is going to be Superman and his crew. At the other end of the spectrum will be the villains. And then there's going to be a big middle ground that'll be occupied by the likes of Guy Gardner and Hawkgirl, even Supergirl. I wonder where we'll see Batman land in that spectrum. Booster Gold, I can see him almost on a journey similar to Peacemaker, except his will be built around selfishness and self-aggrandizement and then learning how to be a true hero. Where Christopher Smith makes a longer journey from being pretty reprehensible while thinking he's doing good to actually being a hero. And that's why we watch these stories. That's why we pay attention to all of this content, because it's fun to see all these different types of characters bounce off of each other. And hopefully by the end of it, we get to good resolutions where we see good people win out. And we end up feeling good about humanity, kind of like the way we felt as we left the theaters after watching Superman. Another thing that I've heard people talk about was how, and I think I may have mentioned this earlier, some people were saying, well, why did Superman get his butt handed to him? And he seemed too weak and too depowered and all this kind of stuff. As I've watched the movie multiple times now, I've picked up on Lex's note that he says during the final fight that Ultraman is stronger than him. That Ultraman was created and honed to be stronger than Superman. And even when he's making his pitch to the people at the Pentagon, Lex refers to Ultraman as the strongest being on the planet. So if he's stronger than Superman and he's being controlled by Lex, who has studied everything about Superman and has all these pre-programmed moves that all these gamer people that work for Lex are executing to control how their in real life video game character Ultraman is, then yeah, of course he's going to be beating Superman. Superman's not just up against one singular bad guy. He's against a force that's technically stronger than him, that has several people working against him and executing complicated maneuvers and staying not just one step, but several steps ahead of him. And for him to still be going toe-to-toe with him is pretty impressive, actually, when you think about it from that respect. And then you have the fact that I realized this, I think after my 7th viewing of it, when you watch Superman fighting Ultraman, he's fighting like a big Kansas farm boy. He's just throwing big haymakers, mostly rights and a few lefts, but it's mostly just swinging away with his right hand, just trying to hit him as hard as he can. And it's only at the very end, in the middle of that fight, where he does put up his forearm to block one of Ultraman's punches and counters with a couple of different maneuvers. Then he uses the big signpost as a hammer or a big old baseball bat of some kind to swing away at Ultraman, and then does the big flip kick kind of thing and drives him down into the rift area deeper. But other than that, it's mostly just taking big swings, big punches. Because who has Superman fought that is at his level? He hasn't had to fight anybody stronger than that. So yeah, of course he's going to struggle. And so that brought up another thing as I'm thinking forward, and you've seen Harcourt in that first episode of Peacemaker and in last season too. She's this great martial artist, and now she's struggling to find her place. Maybe at some point she can be the personal trainer for the Justice Gang, and one of her big project pupils will be Superman, trying to teach him how to fight instead of just throwing big old punches and that's all he can do. Or maybe that's how they introduce Batman or Wonder Woman too, because either of those two probably can spend a little bit of time with Superman to tell him, hey, big guy, just a big old punch isn't going to do it all the time. So maybe that's another bit of growth and exploration we get out of this DCU. I'm looking forward to that. One other thing that I've noticed with the multiple viewings now, and that I appreciate even more every time I see it, is at the very end when Lois and Superman go into the nation's oldest mall in Cleveland, in Metropolis, that big empty mall, when he offers to give her an interview to fill her in on the details. And they walk in there. And I remember, I think in the first episode, I said I was a little disappointed that was spoiled for us in the previews, that big kiss where they start floating up in the middle of that mall and you see this, like, just this moment, and then the way that shot is taking in all the architecture of that mall and everything, and it just is so grand and sweeping, and this emotional moment all in the middle of that. And yeah, I still wish we hadn't seen that. That would have been cool the first time through, but when you see it multiple times through, now what leads up to that and what happens in the middle of that scene is so cool. First, when they're walking in, if you stop, just pay attention to Perry White as they go walking in, and he's just chomping it on his cigar, and he gives him this side-eye thing before he says anything to Jimmy. You really get the sense he knows what's up. He goes, how long have those two been hooking up? And Jimmy, who is so connected, this is another piece that I think is going to be fun to explore some more. Jimmy is so connected with everything and just seems to know everything that's going on, whether they can print it in the paper or not. Jimmy's like, oh yeah, 3 months. But Perry is just like on that. He's just looking at them like, okay, I see what's going on here. The next thing is when they get in there and they kind of round the corner, and Lois is just a little bit ahead of him. And the way she turns and lunges at him, like she can't wait to kiss him. Like she's so happy for him. She's so wanting to tell him how much she loves him. Because now, remember, they haven't gotten to really talk at all since they were in his apartment. And she made him that good cocoa that he was enjoying so much while the fight was taking place with the dimensional imp outside. They haven't talked since then. They haven't even talked since she saw the inside of his childhood bedroom, which I'll get back to that in a minute too, where she realized he is who he actually says he is and acts like he is. No, this is the guy. There's no artifice about this. And him thinking that everyone around him is beautiful in some way, like she said, that's legit. That's who he is. Because she saw behind the curtain and what made him him. She met Ma and Pa. She saw his childhood bedroom and all the trophies and the Mighty Crab Joys poster and all the stuff in there that was like, no, he's legit. This is the real deal. I can trust this guy. And she had this epiphany about all of that. And this is the first time she gets to just finally meet him and embrace him and hug and kiss this man that she has realized, yes, I truly am in love with him. And then when she tells him, and I clocked it the first time, but every time I see it now, when she says that and they cut to his face, he gets this just big, dopey, joyful, oh, really? You love me? Kind of look on his face that's like, you know, when you know you're really, truly in love with somebody and you have the butterflies in your stomach and all that stuff. And for him to be able to switch from this ridiculous battle that he just had to now he's got the woman that he loves in his arms. She's safe. Everybody's safe. And now she did turn around and say, yes, I love you too. Holy cow. To see a Superman melt because Lois Lane loves him is just so perfect. And is what we Superman nerds are all about, because as the great longtime podcaster from the Super House of L, Derek Russell, has long said, everybody's got Superman, but for Superman, the person he looks up to is Lois Lane. He looks at her the way everybody looks at him. Everybody else looks at him because she's just that amazing to him. And she just said, I love you too. And he melted. And he just got that big dopey grin on his face. And it's just another testament to the chemistry these two actors have and the great script and guidance that they got from James Gunn and the situations they were put in. It's everything that any of us that love these characters has ever wanted. Now, the last thing I'll mention in this episode, and eventually I'm going to go on to other topics, but I am just so taken by this movie and want to just keep rewatching it and keep talking about it and keep listening to other people talk about it. I can't get enough of it right now. Eventually I'll get tired and move on to other topics, but we haven't gotten a movie like this ever. in my 50 plus years on this planet, we finally got a Superman movie that checks nearly all the boxes for who Superman is. So I'm going to linger on this a little bit longer. Somebody on Threads pulled a still from the shot inside Clark's bedroom of his bookshelf. Things he read when he was a kid. And you've got on the bookshelf a bunch of books like all stacked together like they're part of the same series. And some of them are even used books. Oh, I said series and then Siri launched on my phone. That's nice. Stop. He's got Cannery Row by John Steinbeck, then a whole bunch of Shakespeare. And some of them are even from a used book sale. You can see the tags on them. He's got Macbeth, Romeo and Juliet, Richard III, Hamlet, Julius Caesar, The Merchant of Venice, A Midsummer Night's Dream, Othello, The Tempest, Much Ado About Nothing, and then some other books, a couple that I can't see the title of, King Arthur and His Knights, then more Shakespeare, Twelfth Night, Macbeth, another copy of Macbeth, King Henry IV, Part 1 and 2, another copy of Julius Caesar, another copy of Merchant of Venice. So this is who Superman is and what he filled his head with as a kid. And then we've got some of his trophies. You can zoom in on them. Smallville Middle School Spelling Bee, 3rd place. Smallville High School Chess Club, runner-up. Smallville Elementary School Science Fair Scholar, Clark Kent. Smallville High School Debate Club winner, Clark Kent. Youth Citizen Club, Clark Kent as a rising star. And then the image cuts off. That might be a lamp next to it. But it's interesting. All the different things that he does that would lead somebody to be a reporter and somebody who really is interested in helping people as well. The Citizen Club, the Science Fair. He's kind of a nerd, but also 3rd place in the Spelling Bee, runner-up in the Chess Club, a rising star in this other thing. So it shows that he wasn't the top, or maybe he held himself back so that he could be normal just like everybody else. And then you've got a stack of CDs or a little CD holder thing for him. Because, of course, he grew up and he had CDs when he was younger. The one that I'm like, nope, I think his mom put this in here. She misplaced it. I refuse to believe that Superman would listen to Rascal Flatts just because I am completely bigoted against country music. That's just me. I may claim to be raised by Superman, but I was also raised around a lot of country music, and boy, do I hate it. Boy, do I hate country music. But, he's in Kansas, so he's going to be exposed to it, so I guess we'll kind of forgive it. But I will claim that it's his mom misplaced it. He's got Tchaikovsky's The Nutcracker. He's got a CD with The Temptations' Christmas. He's got a Harry Connick Jr. CD. Some other ones I can't really read. He's got the Dave Matthews Band is sitting upside down in there. He's got another something, Christmas something or other. Of course, Superman loves Christmas. Other ones I can't read. But anyway, very, very eclectic music taste for him. Did not see anything by the PODs and the Mighty Grabjoys. Didn't see any of their CDs in there. But hey, we got to see a little bit more of a glimpse of what made Superman who he is and what makes Clark Kent who he is. And hopefully Lois Lane doesn't hold that Rascal Flatts CD against him either. I would believe that Lois Lane would also believe that Ma Kent accidentally stuck that in Clark's bedroom with his CDs. Anyway, that's it for this episode. I'm still working on coming up with an email address and all that good stuff because I'm still trying to see if this is going to be something that's sustainable. I love talking about Superman. And if there's people that want to hear somebody ramble on about Superman, I'm your guy. So if you have subscribed, thank you for subscribing and hang in there. At some point, I'll make a decision whether this is going to keep going or not and see if I pod fade before the 7 episodes that all the podcasting experts say. If you can make it past 7 episodes, you've proven you can last. So we'll see. We will see. But I love talking about Superman. This is the most inspiring character in all of fiction for all the reasons that you're seeing up on the screen or can see on your own home screen now in the new Superman movie. Thank you for listening. I'll be back at some point, hopefully a lot sooner. Take care.